All right, let's stay with this particular issue. We will be in conversation with Volchere Kgekwane, who's the CEO of the National Black Business Caucus of the Black Business Council. And remember, we're supposed to be in conversation with Dr. Negligence of the City of Johannesburg, and he's the MMC for Public Safety. But unfortunately, he's not able to join us now. They're in a high-level meeting that is also discussing issues around this registration and a number of issues. So we will then bring you their side of the story and an update from the City of Johannesburg as well as to how this process unfolded and how are they're going to be moving forward, especially when it comes to this issue of a registration and the extension, as well as the number of concerns that some of you have even raised, as well as a number of the viewers as well. But let's be in conversation now with Volchere. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Let's start with this registration process and the time, because there are a number of our viewers who are saying that for them 21 days was simply not enough, and then there are a number of residents as well that our reporters have been speaking to are saying that the process was tedious, 21 days was not enough. What's your take?
Good evening, Bongi, and good evening to the viewers. My take from the very beginning was that it's confusing. For me as a leader of black business, it's confusing what's taking place. Because you say 21 days to register. Who's registering what? Is this registration excluding the foreign nationals and just for South Africans who want to go into this business, or is it for people who are in the business who are South African only? Because if it's a registration for everybody, including the foreign nationals, that is not going to happen with this kind of registration. Because these people are on asylum, a lot of them, and they will never qualify for anything that requires an ID, South African ID document, which comes only with citizenship in South Africa. So that was not made clear. So a lot of people are in limbo. And when it comes to the black businesses that are supposed to register, I don't understand how a government who's run this country for 30 years can say go and register for a formalization of a business in 21 days, when they know most people in township don't even have title deeds. How are you going to rezone? Let alone the 21 days issue, but how are you going to rezone your property to be legally a business entity in a business location while you don't have a title deed? What are you rezoning if there's no title deed? So the problem is about the administration of government before this situation we are in now. So, you know, the NBBC feels a lot of pain for the children that have succumbed to the food poisoning and the poisoning that was around the food, right? What I am concerned about as a black business leader is when we start to take shortcuts and pass the blame and pass the buck. The government should be clear what the government is trying to achieve.
Do you think that, because I'm listening to what you're saying, does it sound like they did not think this through before implementing this process? And I ask you because as you talk about this issue of title deeds, it came up. The issue of some of the business owners who are saying that when I went there, I had all the documentation, but I was told I was not, my business is not appearing when it comes to the municipal structures as well as the architectural designs as supposed to be a business. So I need to relook, you know, at what's going on. A businessman in Gqeberha, for example, saying that I've been running this business for so many years and it's my source of income. Now I'm being told I need to possibly demolish it or shut it down and go to another place. It won't happen. So was it not well thought out? Well,
not being well thought out is one thing, and I think that's part of it. There was not enough consultation. We never got consultation before this took place, and we deal with the township businesses, the NBBC. NAFCOC has had some consultation, but just really a by-the-way kind of thing. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but in our engagements, I know that all of us did not get adequate participation. We would not contribute to this process. Otherwise, we would have advised government differently. I myself ran a business in township in a place called Letabo, right? It was a restaurant slash Spaza shop, right? Some years back. And you'd have government officials coming and saying, you're not in the right zone, we're going to shut you down. And the argument has always been, but there's 100 other businesses that are not zoned properly in this township. Why mine? You know, so the government has got a lot of rules that are there for us to be able to function as a society, but none of them are actually implemented until there's a crisis, and then they start getting enforced, like, you know, really quickly, and people don't have time to adjust to what's taking place. So I think a proper planning to look at the dynamics of what the Spaza shop, because it's specifically around Spaza shops. There's a lot more other businesses in township that are not Spaza shops, right? But in the Spaza shop space, majority of the shops are foreign owned. So who's registering what there? With an ID, SARS, business registration. How do you register a business registration at CIPC when you don't have an ID? So that either means the government is trying to sideline and remove, shut down the foreign nationals and leave it just. And if that's the case that government is doing that, we're not going to fight that. We're just saying the government must be clear so everybody understands what they're supposed to do.
When it comes to the registration itself, does it resolve this issue of suspected food poisoning incidents that we've seen across the country?
I don't think so. Well, registration is always important because it allows government to monitor who's doing what, right? But the way the registration is being done is not actually going to resolve this. We need every single shop, every single entity in this country that is dealing with food, anything that's consumed by human beings, even what's consumed by animals that we consume as human beings, all has to be monitored by government and approved. There are standards in place to approve all of that, right? So that is a given. No one can argue that registration is not important. But the way it's been done now, it's like throwing water quickly on a fire. It's not really getting the process into place where we are putting every single registration in its space and then seeing how to advance it. Because what I would have advised government to do is say, everybody must register. Whether you are local or not, everybody must register. You must know who you are, what you're doing, where you're buying your food from. Because what's important is the health. It's not about ousting a certain group of people and retaining a certain group. That is the wrong time to look at that now. We want to fix the issue of bad quality food that's causing death.
And especially because there are some pesticides that have been found here, and some of these owners don't even know how to handle all of that.
Yes. So, whenever government marginalizes a certain group and they don't comply by default, they tend to cut corners because no one's monitoring them. They're outside the sphere of what government controls, right? And that's a problem with the foreign nationals, right? So the government should bring them in with a registration and then bring them through a mandatory training about how to deal with your shop when it comes to pesticide, how to deal with your shop when it comes to food handling. Remember, it's not just the organophosphate that's a problem here. We also have the issue of things like salmonella, and it's not only the foreign nationals that are a problem here. I've been to a number of the bigger superstores that are, the corporate ones, and you find rotten bread on their shelf. You find chicken that is going off on their shelf, sitting amongst other chicken. And how does salmonella spread? It spreads just like that. And you have restaurants who are still using wooden chopping boards. And a wooden chopping board, everybody knows that when you have salmonella on chicken and you put it on a wooden chopping board, because it's a living product, it's something that's coming from a tree. Unlike a plastic or a stainless steel, you're still going to move the salmonella across from this chicken to another chicken that you're preparing. And that's a very tough disease because it survives the boiling process and still can give you serious issues, and depending on the kind of person who's eating it, right? So that training is very important. So if people are outside what the environment of government is monitoring, how are you going to train them? How are you going to bring them up to par? The problem with that is, regardless whether they are accepted or not, they are still selling food to our people.
Yeah.
And I don't think they have an intention to murder anybody. I think they are negligent because they are undertrained and they don't understand any of these things. And the organophosphate itself is not well monitored. It's not supposed to be handled by me or anybody without a license in the first place.
Before I let you go, I want to take some voice notes from our viewers tonight, because we're asking them if they believe that this 21 days of a registration process is in fact enough. And I do understand that we do have some of your voice notes. Let's take them, and then I'd like you to respond to some of what they say, because we are talking about this process. This 21 days, it expired today. The deadline was at 5 p.m. So we did ask you tonight, do you think 21 days was enough? So let's listen to some of what you've had to say on the voice notes.
My name is Khiba. 21 days is not enough, but It was done based on the pressure given to the government to handle the issue of Spaza shop. So people must comply and people must not delay the process to address the issue of Spaza shop registration, because technically it's to identify people who are not legally and to be taken in terms of the law of South Africa. People must appreciate what the president has done. Nothing else. President has done what people are pushing him to do. So they must comply.
According to me, I think 21 days was more than enough. They were supposed to be given even 10 days, mostly those illegal foreigners who have sponsorship.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm DT Ramachapulo from Limpopo, Lephalale. I think 21 days was enough for them because they had all the past years to register their businesses. So that means they've been robbing our country. So 21 days is enough. Even if they were given 5 days, it was enough for them. So let the government close this thing today. Those who didn't register their businesses must be closed. They had all the years, like I said, to register their companies. Thank you.
Your take?
Well, I think, we have an issue where people are more focused on the type of person who's running the shop. Are they legal or illegal? And a lot of it is assumptions because these people are not in the same bracket. Some are on asylum, some are refugee status, others are registered. There are those shops that are registered that are owned by Somalians and Ethiopians who have got their status intact and they've registered companies. So that's why you get to some of the shops and you find you can swipe a card, there's a bank machine there and all that sort of thing. So we just need to decide as South Africa, are we kicking these people out or are we keeping them? If we're keeping them here, let's register them, let's know what they're doing, and let's put them into mandatory training because they are part of the society. If they are not a part of society, they must leave, and then let's build the whole thing from scratch. My parting shot, though, is we must be careful as South Africans what we wish for. Because if we do kick everybody out, who are we opening the space for? And who's got the resources to come in and actually take up that space? And I can tell you now, it's not going to be the township person in majority. It's going to be the big corporates who come in with containers. They are going to run that space because a 200 billion rand business a year, they are not going to just leave it there. So as soon as that void is created, without planning it properly, they're going to move into the, the USAVE and all those QualiSave. They're going to move into the townships, which they're already eyeing to get into, right? But the business model will be different. So we need to know, we need to do research on, can we harness this industry? Can we formalize this industry? Can we take what's already been built by government without a cent being spent by government on it and turn it into an outlet for what black people produce in South Africa? I have members who are, a member who's producing Khemer, I have a member who's producing Milli Mill. They don't have access to the big corporate stores. So can we use this network of outlets to put our small businesses in? Can we have that as a business negotiation, as a way to be profitable, monitor where the food comes from by empowering the food processors and the food processing people and the farmers, the black farmers, to access this chain of 150,000 shops that is turning over 200 billion a year.
Before I let you go in 10 seconds, should there be an extension?
Oh, definitely there should be an extension, but there should also be an adoption of how to register. We must understand the reason for what we're doing. If we want to know who's operating, because these guys, they change all the time. You'll have Mohammed today, and then, oh, he's my brother. There's somebody else in the shop, and all those people are untrained. So we have to harness that environment. The government has to come in and formalize it, which means registering everybody, whether they're legal or not. Let's see their condition, their situation, and case by case, Home Affairs will do their thing. But once that's done, let's formalize the whole environment, right? And let's understand and manage its whole value chain of operation, where the food comes from, how it comes into their shops, even how they handle their food, how they handle pesticides and other chemicals that they would use in their shops. All of that. Let's work on the whole system, but in a holistic manner, not just a quick fix throw them out or do whatever. Let's see. Let's do research. Let's work together. Let's put our heads together. The government should bring us, NAVCOG, or Black Business Council, basically, but also those who are working in township, the smaller organizations that are active in township, they mustn't be ignored. Just because we are NBBC and the Black Business Council, we shouldn't be the only ones consulted. They should also consult the township operators, those township business forums that operate in Tembisa, Soweto, Tsakani. They must all be called to a mass meeting where we discuss this and come up with a solution and resolution.
We're going to raise this with the authorities when we speak to them. And thank you so much for coming through. Appreciate it. That's Volchere Kgekwane there, who's the CEO of the National Black Business Council, Caucus of the Black Business Council. Remember, we're supposed to be in conversation with Dr. Mgcine Chwaku. He's in a high-level meeting that's also discussing in part some of these issues here. We'll put some of the concerns that have been raised by black business to him as well. How do you begin to harness the space? Because that's the big question. Because then if you are not going to open the space up to people, who then takes up this space? So we'll talk about that as well as look at the issue of registration and where things stand right now. So we'll try and bring you that response as soon as we can.